A couple of videos ago, I talked about a 1-2 punch strategy you could use while serving, and it allowed you to make your serve a weapon even if you didn't have a ton of power. Now, a couple people left comments on that video asking, well, if my opponent is using this strategy against me, how do I counteract it? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And then I'm also going to bring back in some dynamic footwork, which I was talking about in the previous video I released, and show you how that footwork is great for counteracting the 1-2 punch strategy if your opponent's using it against you. Now, let's quickly talk about what the 1-2 punch strategy is in case you're not familiar. If you're down here serving, first serve is out wide. That's going to pull your opponent off the court, and then any ensuing return that's sort of in the middle of the court here, punch number 2 is to hit into the open court. So it's a pretty simple strategy, but what you're taking advantage here is your serve placement. Don't need a ton of power, just need to get your opponent off the court, and then it's actually the subsequent shot you hit that does the damage. So you're not trying to win the point outright with your serve, you're just trying to set up your next shot. Now, if your opponent uses this against you, where do you want to, first of all, put most of your returns? And I would say you want to put most of your returns cross-court, somewhere over here. And there's a couple reasons you want to do that. First of all, if you get the ball over here, it's going to be difficult for your opponent to go down the line and really hurt you. This is a hard shot to pull off if you hit a quality cross-court return. Now, the other reason you want to do it, you want to go cross-court, is because you actually don't have as far to recover after you hit your return. So up here I've got CC, which stands for cross-court, and then DTL, which is down the line. So when you hit this ball cross-court, this return cross-court, let's say you make contact right here. If you go cross-court, you need to recover there to the cross-court little circle I've drawn here. But if you hit down the line, you actually have further to go. You have to go over here to the DTL positioning point that I've written there. So if you go down the line and you don't hit a very good shot, your opponent's going to get to this ball. Chances are you might be, maybe at the cross court, maybe you're not even there, maybe you're over here somewhere, and your opponent's just going to have a ton of court to hit into, and over here your opponent's going to be able to generate an angle and pull you off the court. If you hit over here, your opponent has to hit through the court. So by going over here, you're also managing the angles your opponent is able to work with if they're trying to hit into the open court. So there's a number of good reasons you want to go cross court with your return and not down the line. So with that in mind, that basic, put the ball over here to counteract this strategy, what do you want to do when you're actually setting up to return? Because there's a couple of different techniques you can apply here. And specifically, you can either cut the ball off or you can back up and give yourself a little bit more time. So if you were going to cut the ball off, you would stand right up on the baseline for the most part, and then you would move diagonally into the court to cut the ball off there. But if you were backing up, you might, and moving more laterally, you might stand a couple steps back and then move laterally to get to this ball and hit it over there. So this second technique is something that Rafael Nadal does a lot, and Djokovic would be a guy who does this one, who is more likely to cut the ball off. So what are the pros and the cons of doing these? Choosing between these two particular techniques. Well, if you cut the ball off, then you are managing your court positioning a little bit, because you can see when you move laterally and back up, you now have this area here, this extra court, where you've been pulled off the court, so you have further to recover to, whether it's this point or this point. And cutting it off, you're not being pulled quite as wide. Now, the disadvantage is, or not necessarily the disadvantage, but the tricky thing with cutting the ball off is that you have to have very, very precise footwork. Can't have a lot of extraneous steps. You have to have very, very, very good timing. And that both in terms of your timing of your split step and your footwork, and your ability to time the ball, short backswing, if your opponent's got a little bit of pace on that. Now, I talked about dynamic footwork. And for this one right here, this technique where you're cutting the ball off, the walking step and the hopping step are great. They're great pieces of footwork to use to do this. And if you look at the pros, they use the walking step on the forehand quite frequently, and then on the backhand they use the hopping step quite frequently to cut off serves like this. So here's yet another reason to really learn that dynamic footwork, because it allows you to move properly when you're trying to cut off serves and cut off the angle. Now, if you back up, maybe like a Rafa, your footwork doesn't have to be quite as precise. It's kind of more the type of footwork you would see if you're just rallying from the baseline. You obviously still have to be real quick and have very good timing, but it's not quite as demanding as cutting the ball off, where you're only taking a couple steps, has to be very well timed to pull that off effectively. So those are a couple considerations there, and you need to evaluate your own game and say to yourself, how's my timing here? Can I, am I skilled enough to be able to pick these balls off a little bit early? And if you're not quite there, you certainly work on it. You're going to build that proficiency and that skill level. But the first thing is start with that dynamic footwork, because it's really, the dynamic footwork just in general is really powerful. But here's yet another application and why it's so important to have in your arsenal. So with that in mind, please let me know what you think of this technique in the comments below. If you have any questions about this, on the previous video where I was talking about the 1-2 punch strategy, this the topic for this video was a question and some comments some folks left. So if you leave a question about this technique or something else, I'll read that, and then I can maybe make a video talking about and addressing some of the concerns or follow-up questions y'all have. So please leave a comment. Please like this video. If you're on YouTube, if you're on FYB, there's a Facebook like button above this video. Please click on that. And I look forward to reading your comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.